back to Tween Create. I'm Miss Kathleen. Today we're going to talk about hand sewing, and we are going to kind of go through the steps of hand sewing something that is useful for you, a pouch. But first I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of hand making. So if you don't know how to sew already, or if you want to learn another useful skill that uses your hands, these are some of the benefits. You are learning a useful skill. You are using your creative brain, parts of your brain that might not get accessed all the time. You're creating a unique product. You're improving your hand-eye coordination, and any crafting or making is good for your mood. Also, engaging your hands in creative work makes you smarter. I don't know if you knew all those things. I did not. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is decide what is your pouch for. This pouch that you're making out of fabric and sewing it with the needle and thread and cutting it. What are you going to use it for? A pocket knife, could use a pouch, some lip balm, or how about hand sanitizer? Some more probably usual things that people make a pouch for are cell phones, or a little bag for their earbuds or their iPod. Anyhow, you can make a pouch for anything. It depends on what you need one for. So here are the things that you will need. You will need some fabric scraps. Most people have some fabric scraps left over from a project, or they have perhaps a old piece of clothing that they're going to repurpose. Instead of just throwing it away, you could repurpose it, reuse it. Some scissors, some sharp scissors, a sewing needle, thread, a button, if you want to use a button to close it, and some additional bling. So for bling, I'm thinking like little buttons that are maybe animal shapes, or a soccer ball, or some really cute little animal sticker things that are actually, they're going to hold up. They're made out of hard plastic. You can either glue them on, or you can figure out a way to sew them on. You can use, what is it called? A glue gun. So if you're going to use a glue gun, just make sure that you have permission, and that perhaps have a bowl of ice water nearby. It's always a good idea, because you never know when you're going to burn yourself. Okay, so once you've decided what you're going to use your pouch for, wash and dry your fabric first, because most fabric is going to have some shrinkage. And if you've measured carefully for whatever your pouch is going to be used for, you want it not to shrink once you wash it, because fabric gets dirty, you'll want to wash it. And then you're going to want to fold your fabric piece in half. This will allow you to have one seam or one edge where you don't have to sew anything. So you're just going to sew the two sides. So the bottom flap, where you folded it over, so you've got two flaps, is going to be your bottom seam, or your the bottom of your pouch. Then you want to measure your pouch dimensions by placing your object on the fabric at the fold. Cell phones come in all different sizes. So if you have a really fun antique one, I'll call it antique, like a flip phone, those are great, but they are much smaller generally than like your latest iPhone or something like that. So, and you could make one for an iPad if you wanted to. That's going to be a lot bigger. And then you're going to pencil in some guide marks where you will cut. But remember to add 2 to 3 additional inches at the top for the flap, because you're going to have a flap that comes down over, and then allow a seam on the sides that you're going to sew at least a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and enough for your stitches. I have included kind of a fun video for you to watch, actually 2. One to do a simple stitch that doesn't show, it's really easy. And then another one that has all different kinds of stitches. So some stitches can look really pretty if you have them showing, or you could do a blanket stitch where it really shows and it goes all along the edge. And then lastly, you're going to cut a slit on the top flap, and you're going to sew with a button underneath on the piece of fabric. So it's going to close over like that. So I wanted to show you the fabric that I have. I've got this piece here. It's got these cute little birds on it. And then I have this piece here. These were really cheap at the fabric store. They're just kind of remnants. They're both kind of a soft cotton fabric. I think I'm going to use this one to make a cell phone pouch. Here is my little sewing basket. And in here I have different threads, and I keep my scissors in here. My scissors. I have some needles stuck right here. Most people will have at least a little sewing kit somewhere in their home. And if not, maybe you have a relative who does. Then I'm going to use this one. I use a lot. This is just white thread, and I just kept the needle attached to it because this is the color that I use most to mend things. Okay, let me show you. So this is washed, and I folded it in half. You can see it's the same on both sides. Here's the inside. So I'm going to keep it folded, and then where did I do it at? Here's my cell phone. I'm going to put my cell phone on it and measure it from here. This is going to be the bottom of my pouch. Remember, there's not going to be that much shrinkage because I have pre-washed my fabric. Then I am going to, I don't need to cut on this side because this side's already cut. I'm just going to cut along here. I'm going to stand up and show you. I'm going to cut along here, and then I'm going to measure a couple of inches at the bottom and cut along there. Okay, so then I am ready to sew. Most people also have some loose buttons. When you buy shirts, sometimes they come with extra buttons, and most people hang on to those. But maybe you don't even have the shirt anymore that the button came with. So you can use that button to close up your pouch, or I just bought these at the craft store. These are enormous buttons, but they're fun colors. And so I have some choices. I'm going to use a pink one. I could do a triangle or a hexagon. I think that's a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's an octagon. Or I think I'm going to use the rectangle because I like that shape with the circles. So that's the button I'm going to use. All right, so what if you have never hand sewn anything before? Well, don't worry, it is actually really simple and very fun. And handmade things are made to look handmade. They're supposed to look handmade. So you don't need to worry about it being perfect. We don't want it to look like it came off an assembly line, right? Or from a factory. So just relax and have fun with it. Okay, here's some practical tips. Use a fine needle. You don't want to be poking large holes into your fabric. You also don't want to make it unnecessarily difficult for your needle to go through. Use sharp scissors. Try not to use the same scissors that you use for paper because they're going to be dull. They're not going to cut the fabric very well. But if that's all you have, then just take your time. I have a couple of tricks for threading a needle. You want to wet the end of the thread. Make sure that you've cut it really sharply so it has a blunt end, and then just wet it in your mouth a little bit and then bring the needle to the thread instead of the other way. At least that works for me. Another way to do it is to take your thread, I'll show you, and wrap it around the end of your needle. And you're going to pull it really tight. And then you have just this little nub of thread. I don't know if you can see it, but you can then thread through the eye of your needle. So it goes through like that, and then you pull it through the other side, okay? So a couple of ways to thread your needle. When you are going to measure and cut your fabric, measure twice and cut once. I'm sure that's self-explanatory. Every time you go to make a stitch, give the needle a quarter turn, and this will help to prevent it from tangling. I like to iron the fabric and iron my edges folded over. You can leave your edges raw if you want to. So raw means that these edges are just going to be raw like that. But you can fold them over and it makes a really neat seam. So they'd be folded over on both sides. So then they come together like that. That makes sense. So I like to iron it. If you're going to use an iron, just get permission. Use an invisible stitch. Here is the video for that if you want to use an invisible stitch, or learn another stitch. And here is the link for that video. So going back to that idea of the bling, so you will want to sew some personal touches on maybe, or maybe you'll just keep it simple and not have any embellishments on it. But if you want to, you know, there's stick-on jewels, there's little buttons that are all kinds of characters. Maybe you have a charm that came off a bracelet or a sticker that you want to put on your pouch, whatever. Don't forget to personalize it. It'll be personal anyway though, because you have made it. And remember to have fun. That is the end of our program for Tween Create this week. I hope that if you do decide to make a pouch, you will share it with us on social media at Meridian Library, or that you will send an email or comment below and attach a picture. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time. Bye.